Have you ever felt as though a relationship from its very inception was shrouded in an almost palpable darkness? A sense of foreboding, a whisper in the back of your mind that this connection, however alluring, was somehow doomed? It's a chilling sensation, isn't it? To be drawn to someone, to feel the undeniable pull of destiny, only to find yourself ensnared in a cycle of pain, disappointment, and inexplicable chaos. We've all heard tales of cursed objects, haunted houses and lineages plagued by misfortune. But what if the curse wasn't external? What if it resided within the very architecture of our own minds, projected outward onto the unsuspecting canvas of our relationships? What if the patterns of heartbreak, the recurring betrayals, the soul-crushing disappointments were not random acts of fate, but meticulously crafted scripts written by the unconscious mind? Think back to the relationships that have left you scarred, the ones that seem to defy logic, the ones where you found yourself repeating the same mistakes, drawn to the same type of person, despite knowing the inevitable outcome. Was it merely bad luck, a series of unfortunate coincidences? Or was there something deeper at play, a hidden force orchestrating these events from the shadows? Perhaps you've noticed a pattern, a recurring theme in your romantic entanglements. Maybe you consistently attract partners who are emotionally unavailable, or perhaps you find yourself sabotaging relationships just as they begin to blossom. These aren't random occurrences. They are echoes of unresolved traumas, whispers from the depths of your subconscious, seeking to be heard, to be healed. But how does this translate into a relationship feeling cursed? It's the sensation of being trapped in a narrative that you didn't consciously choose, of playing a role in a drama that feels both familiar and horrifying. It's the feeling that no matter how hard you try, you can't escape the gravitational pull of these destructive patterns. You might even start to believe that you are somehow unworthy of love, that happiness is simply not in the cards for you. This isn't about blaming yourself or wallowing in self-pity. It's about recognizing the profound power of the unconscious mind and understanding how it shapes our reality. It's about acknowledging that the curse is not an external force, but an internal program, a deeply ingrained belief system that is playing out in our relationships. It's about understanding that we have the power to rewrite that script, to break free from these destructive cycles, and to create relationships that are based on love, trust, and mutual respect. So, prepare to delve into the hidden realms of the psyche, to explore the shadows that lurk beneath the surface of our conscious awareness. We will unravel the mysteries of attachment, trauma, and the unconscious mind, and discover how these forces conspire to create relationships that feel as though they are destined to fail. Are you ready to confront the darkness and reclaim your power to create a love life that is truly fulfilling? Let's delve into the psychological underpinnings of this perceived relational curse. The concept of the shadow, as introduced by Carl Jung, offers a particularly insightful perspective. Your shadow comprises the aspects of yourself that you deem unacceptable, undesirable, or even evil. These repressed qualities, rather than disappearing, are relegated to the unconscious, where they exert a powerful influence on your behavior and, crucially, your relationship choices. Consider, for example, someone who deeply fears their own capacity for anger. They might consciously strive to be perpetually kind and accommodating. However, this repressed anger doesn't vanish. It simmers beneath the surface, potentially manifesting in passive-aggressive behavior, or attracting partners who are overtly aggressive, essentially acting out the disowned anger on their behalf. The relationship in this case becomes a stage upon which the shadow self is projected and experienced indirectly. Moreover, the phenomenon of repetition compulsion, a concept explored by Sigmund Freud, highlights our tendency to reenact past traumas in the hope of achieving a different outcome. Picture a child who experienced emotional neglect from a parent. As an adult, they may unconsciously seek out partners who are similarly emotionally unavailable, driven by a subconscious desire to finally win their affection and heal the original wound. The problem, of course, is that this dynamic inevitably leads to further disappointment and reinforces the initial trauma, perpetuating the cycle of perceived cursed relationships. Now, consider how this applies when you face consistent rejection. It might not just be unfortunate happenstance. It could be that, unbeknownst to you, your body language or tone subtly communicates a lack of self-worth, stemming from deep-seated insecurities. Potential partners, sensing this underlying vulnerability, may unconsciously recoil, triggering the familiar sting of rejection and solidifying your belief that you are somehow destined to be alone. The unconscious mind is a master of disguise, often presenting these patterns as fate or destiny. It whispers narratives of unworthiness, plants seeds of doubt, and orchestrates encounters that confirm our deepest fears. Yet, recognizing these patterns for what they are, projections of our own unresolved issues, is the first step toward breaking free from the perceived curse and creating relationships that are built on genuine connection and mutual respect. To escape, one must first acknowledge the puppeteer pulling the strings from the shadows. Reflecting on this journey so far, it's as though we've been navigating a labyrinth, each turn revealing a deeper layer of the self. The initial sense of a preordained, inescapable fate begins to dissolve, replaced by an understanding that the architecture of our relationships is, in many ways, a reflection of our inner landscape. The echoes of past hurts, the unacknowledged aspects of our being, they reverberate through our choices, shaping the dynamics we find ourselves trapped within. Imagine a complex musical score, where unresolved chords from previous movements continue to influence the melody, creating dissonance and tension until they are finally resolved. Similarly, the unresolved traumas and suppressed emotions from our past continue to play out in our present relationships, creating patterns of conflict and dissatisfaction until we consciously address them. It is not about assigning blame or succumbing to despair. Instead, it's about recognizing that we are the composers of our own lives, capable of rewriting the score and creating a more harmonious composition. The power lies not in magically altering external circumstances, but in transforming the internal narrative. The curse, if we can still call it that, is not a malevolent force acting upon us, but rather a self-fulfilling prophecy, a script written by our unconscious fears and limiting beliefs. To break free, we must become aware of this script, challenge its assumptions, and dare to imagine a different ending. As we pivot towards the final reflection, consider the image of a garden overgrown with weeds. The weeds, in this analogy, represent the negative patterns and beliefs that choke the life out of our relationships. Simply cutting them back at the surface provides only temporary relief. They will inevitably return, stronger than before. To truly transform the garden, we must dig deeper, addressing the root causes of the problem, enriching the soil with self-compassion and understanding, and planting seeds of hope and possibility. Drawing these strands together, we see that the path forward requires a profound act of self-responsibility. It demands that we confront the shadows within, acknowledge the wounds that shape our choices, and cultivate the courage to rewrite the story of our lives. It is not a passive acceptance of fate, but an active embrace of our own potential for growth and transformation. The journey we've undertaken has been a descent into the labyrinthine depths of the self, a confrontation with the echoes of the past that reverberate through our present relationships. We've explored the shadows, acknowledged the wounds, and begun to understand how these hidden forces conspire to create patterns of heartbreak and disappointment, leading to the feeling that some relationships are cursed. But the true revelation lies not in identifying the darkness, but in recognizing our inherent power to transform it. The curse, as we've come to understand, is not an external force but an internal script, a self-fulfilling prophecy written by our unconscious fears and limiting beliefs. To break free from this cycle, we must become conscious authors of our own lives, rewriting the narrative with courage, compassion, and a deep commitment to self-love. The implications of this understanding extend far beyond the realm of romantic relationships. They touch upon every aspect of our lives, from our careers to our friendships to our relationship with ourselves. When we understand that our reality is shaped by our internal beliefs and expectations, we realize that we have the power to create a life that is aligned with our deepest desires and values. We cease to be victims of fate and become active participants in our own evolution. Consider the image of a phoenix rising from the ashes. The flames represent the pain and suffering we've experienced in our relationships, the moments when we felt lost, broken, and unworthy of love. But the ashes are not an end, they are a beginning. They are the fertile ground from which we can rise again, stronger, wiser, and more resilient than before. This is not a passive process. It requires conscious effort, unwavering self-compassion, and a willingness to confront the shadows within. It demands that we challenge our limiting beliefs, heal our past traumas, and cultivate a deep sense of self-worth. It asks us to embrace vulnerability, to communicate our needs and desires with honesty and clarity, and to create relationships that are based on mutual respect, trust, and authenticity. The path to healing is not always easy. There will be moments when we stumble, when we feel tempted to return to the familiar patterns of the past. But it is in these moments that we must remember the insights we've gained, the strength we've discovered within ourselves, and the unwavering belief that we are worthy of love and happiness. The true practice begins now, in the quiet moments of self-reflection, in the courageous acts of vulnerability, and in the unwavering commitment to creating a life that is aligned with our highest potential. May you find the courage to rewrite your story, to break free from the chains of the past, and to create relationships that are filled with love, joy, and endless possibility. And remember, within the heart of darkness, the most radiant light often waits to be ignited.